Good morning, angels, or good afternoon, whenever you're tuning in. Welcome to the channel of Angel Guidance with myself, the Spirit of Jade. Today, this video I've created is about self-love, also about understanding that you matter and how it is that you can show up for yourself, just to name a few things. This is my first video of really committing to putting my points out there and just sharing some of the knowledge that I've gained across the years on my own journey. So I hope you enjoy the video and see you soon. So today I wanted to talk to you about moving out of certain dynamics and situations that have restricted you, that have held you back, and how it is that you can start to find yourself again, you know, living in the moment, living in the present, and moving through those past experiences to becoming who you're meant to be. Sometimes speaking up for ourselves can be very difficult when all we've known is conformity, to show up in the way that we've been taught to show up, to stay in our confined little being and not speak our mind and speak up for what it is we need. And the reason I speak about this is because every time that you don't speak up for yourself, or you choose subconsciously or consciously to deny what it is that wants to be spoken about, you're diminishing within the strength that you have, the strength that wants to be seen, the openness that you deserve to have, because each time that you store information that you know should be expressed, it's going to cause you to feel uneasy. And I think this is where anxiety can be brought into it as well. I know in my own experience with the anxiety, it was overthinking, it was constantly not speaking my mind, you know, questioning what it is that had value. So something that I've moved through when trying to challenge this inner critic that doesn't want me to speak my mind, that tells me that it's not worthy of speaking, is I think, how would I want someone else to feel if they were in my position? You know, if I knew that I was with someone and we were talking and they didn't feel comfortable enough to say what they wanted to say, I know that I would want to reach out and comfort them. So it's about doing that for yourself and sitting with yourself and having this inner dialogue that's going to consciously and kindly speak to you in a way that you know you can then build the courage up to speak your mind. So the journey that I've been on and how I've moved through this inner critic that is there with reason. I think it's important to have an inner critic, something that tells you, you know, is this good, is this bad, some type of feedback for you to reflect on. But it has to be done in a thoughtful way. You know, when you catch yourself speaking to yourself negatively or in a way that is in a demising way, you have to think to yourself, would I speak to anyone else like this? Softness and kindness go hand in hand, and you should be doing that and treating yourself with that respect as well. When actually coming onto this channel, I understand that within myself I don't have all the answers, but from the knowledge I do have already, that is why I feel called to start this channel. And I think only with time and more experience will I manage to gain and express myself even more as I'd want to. Having that self-belief that what you have to say is worth it is something that's going to propel you even more into the spaces that you want to be seen in. I almost feel like this is a bit of a pep talk to myself as well, so I'll listen to my own advice. But again, this kind of rolls back to that storyline of, if you were sat with someone and you knew they wanted to say something and they didn't, would you just sit there and let them sit there? You know, you'd want them to communicate with you, you'd want them to be open and honest and vocal. And I think this is where as well, like creating a space, a safe haven where you know you're being appreciated by people. Something that I witness within certain groups and people themselves is the lack of self-worth, where initially you know you're not being respected, you know you're not being loved, and you know that you're not being treated how you'd want other people to treat you. Then you realise that you're tolerating, that you're going against your inner compass and neglecting your own needs for the sake of feeling like you're wanted. And even sometimes it doesn't even feel like you're wanted, it's just to actually feel like you're a part of something. For me, like, I've always been a very lone wolf. One of my first friendship breakups when I was I was 14. That was very destructive for me. I didn't have the best time at home either, so that made it even more difficult. But it's where you build resilience, it's where you learn about yourself, and you know, being honest about what it is you need. And I don't mean to fully go lone wolf, but realizing that sometimes you're being asked to move back into your own space, to really reflect on what it is you need, building the foundation and the groundworks for yourself so that you know what you're looking for within friendships, knowing what you need, what you deserve within friendships, in any relationship, to be quite honest. Sometimes you're being asked to reflect with yourself because that will give you the perspective that you need. My key point today is moving out of living in someone else's shadow into becoming yourself. And that can be very difficult to do with all the different societal pressures in the world, all the different belief systems that are around us, recoping and reorganizing this inner coping mechanisms that we have, and really decoding what it is that we know as of right now into a new evolutionary state where we live with more intention and more awareness and more satisfaction within our own lives. One of the key things you've got to think about is honesty. Honesty for yourself, honesty about what it is you need. And some of the things that I think help me do this is, where is it that I'm feeling that I can't be fully vocal, I can't be fully myself? And sometimes, when you're still finding your footworks within relationships or partnerships or situations with people, that's going to take time to figure out, and also feeling comfortable enough to actually express yourself in your honesty. But what you've got to remember is, if you don't have the courage to really step into that experience, then you're probably going to be plodding along, and it might become a point where you end up taking on too much work, where you overgive, where you overexert energy that you don't have, and you're not being conscious about if the reciprocity is really there. To start off with is journaling. Journaling was one of the things that really assisted me in reflection, to give me some clarity, to give me understanding on where my heart space was, where my emotions were, so that I didn't feel like I had to speak to someone, but I was speaking to myself, and ensuring that I was getting everything out so that I could really feel lighter. Because I think if you don't express things, then it does congest and it does become something that builds up, and it becomes very difficult to manage day to day. So seeing as I wasn't really shown how to express my emotions, and expressing emotions is difficult for me to do, sometimes I'd rather break down, sometimes I'd rather close the door and, just sit with myself. But I wasn't intentionally sitting with myself the same way that I would as I do now with journaling. With journaling, I think sometimes it can be a bit daunting if you feel like you have to have a structure, if you feel like your handwriting isn't very clear, if you haven't got the privacy, which I can completely appreciate. So one of the things that I would say to do is create yourself a space. Create yourself a space where you have a set playlist, time where you're not going to be interrupted, a space where you know that you can sit within that emotion, to feel it, to heal it, and to move through it. And not giving yourself this rigidity of, I need to do a structured, writing. No, genuinely just leak onto the page and express everything. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense in sentences. It doesn't matter if you start at the bottom of the page to the top of the page. It doesn't matter if there's big writing, small writing, just so that you can express and really allow yourself to feel what you need to feel. Usually when I'm midway journaling, I break down into tears, sometimes happy tears, sometimes tears of release and sadness, but that is going through the motions and moving through these emotions so that you don't feel stagnant. Some of the things that I write about are how my day has been, how a situation has unfolded, how a situation is continuously unfolding, ideas about the future, experiences in the past, and reflections. And each of these just give me a bit more insight into what it is that I'm doing day to day to contribute to these, what it is that my choices have the impact, life around me, societal changes, different material circumstances that impact that. And because we're always going through something, we're always moving through these cycles. We finish one chapter and we're actually cycling through that, and then before we know it, we're back onto a new cycle and we're moving through to a next experience. And that is life, that is the journey. And when you're moving out of, as I said, this experience where you've known nothing different than living in someone's shadow, it can be very difficult to believe that things can get better, that things are, going to work out in your favour. But you have to believe that, and you have to be your own advocate. You have to be your own source of empowerment, and believing that you are capable, believing that you are deserving will take you a long way forward. This then brings me on to the topic of goals, and thinking about goals in the sense of not a whole list, but having your set dreams, things that you want to work through, things that you're capable of doing, but you find it difficult to believe that you're going to achieve them. Your journaling practice will allow you to reflect and see the stepping stones and the steps that you're taking to really get there. It's nice to always reflect on the writings that we've took part in as well, that expressive formation, realizing that what we wrote down a few years ago is actually in our reality right now. And I don't mean to say this as manifestation, I mean this to say as you're living so intentionally that you're moving in the direction you want to go in, which could be called manifestation, could be called alignment, could be called whatever you want to call it. But it's the fact that when you're living intentionally and you're choosing to live for yourself, not out of selfish reasons, but out of the reasoning of this is your life, then you're going to feel so much more satisfied and feel more connected to yourself, because having that connection to yourself is vital within our world. I believe you're here for your soul's evolution. You're here to understand yourself. You're here to understand people. I'm very much one of those people that I go out in public and just people watch. I sometimes create little stories in the back of my mind, and how right am I don't know, but I sit with myself and I just think we've all got our own stories. We all have our own troubles and happiness and things that make us feel happy, and the fact that we're all individuals has such a reveling excitement in it, because we have free will. We're entitled to free will. We're here to practice that in every way of the word. So within this message, I really want you to think, how is it that I can live within my free will? How is it that I can move away from, doing things or minimizing myself for someone else's satisfaction, but instead allowing myself to be who I want to be, because that's what makes me happy. And realizing that people will fall away, certain situations will change, certain dynamics will shift, and that's part of the growth journey, that's part of the experience. And this is where acceptance is a really key thing. And I think acceptance is going to be my next video, because I want to tune in on that, because acceptance can be really difficult. You feel as if you want to pursue something because that's what you feel is right for you, but usually there's other things behind the scenes that are taking place that you don't recognize just yet, and only until you move forward and reflect back do you realize that things didn't fall into place with reason. It's my message for today. If you liked the video, do leave a like, comment, share or subscribe, whichever you fancy doing. I do have my Instagram channel as well, on my Instagram page, which is angel_guidance. And if there's any comments, any feedback, any points you'd want me to expand on, do let me know. And thank you for watching, thank you for tuning in, and I'm wishing you the best of days or nights whenever you're watching. Lots of love, Angel Guidance.